Hey guys, Sheldon here, and this is Holy Potatoes We're in Space. It's perhaps technically not the sequel to Holy Potatoes, a weapon shop, but a game that takes place in the same potato-filled universe and has just as many quirky references to movies and video games as its predecessor. It's somewhat of a roguelike, but also contains some of the management elements that were found in the previous game. But this time, you're managing a spaceship crew and making your way through a variety of different star systems, exploring planets, gaining resources, upgrading your ship, its weapons, its crew, as you flee from an enemy fleet that means to put an end to your travels permanently. It's a colorful representation, it's easy on the eyes, and the game's not overly complex and it's pretty easy to pick up and play. The game is turn-based this time around, so moving around each galaxy costs souls, exploring each planet costs souls, and of course you have a limited amount of souls before the enemy fleet catches up with you. Upon entering each star system, you'll have 22 souls in order to complete your objective, which varies through each playthrough, the objectives at least, and also explore as many planets as possible to collect the much needed resources, weapon components, which are required to craft your weapons. You can gain money, and which is called starch, which is required to upgrade your ship. You hire a crew, train crew members, do research, or buy new weapon components from the various hubs that are located in each system. Crafting weapons is an integral part of the game, as you'll need to improve the level of your weapons as you progress further and further into the game, because each subsequent system gets harder and harder. On top of that, each weapon has a crafting rating, and of course the higher the rating, the more effective the weapon is going to be. So for example, an A level weapon will do more damage than a B level weapon of the same level. What determines the rating of a weapon is basically the ability of the crew member that's making it. So higher level crafting crew members of that type of weapon will be able to give you a much higher chance of crafting a higher quality weapon of that type. There are a number of different weapons in the game: lasers, missiles, wave-based weapons, scatter shot, and so on, and all of them serve different roles in combat. A laser, for example, will do the highest damage to a single target, whereas missiles offer splash damage, or wave-based weapons will damage all of the different systems on a ship, well, at least all of the different weapons, including the hull. There are even variations in these weapon groups, so for instance, there are lasers that do slightly less damage, but they will give debuffs to the enemy target. So as you get into the battles, you'll need to basically decide what sort of loadout you want on your ship. In addition to that, when you start playing the game, you'll only have 2 weapon slots available on your ship, but as you upgrade your bridge, you'll get access to an additional 2, leaving you with 4 weapon slots that are equipable on your ship. I haven't played far enough to say whether or not you're going to get a new ship later, but the ship you start with has a maximum of 4 weapon slots. Doing research on the ship will offer passive bonuses to weapon healing, so your weapons will get hit points back after each encounter, or upgrading your shields. You can also train your crew members and increase their skills or unlock additional skills for them. And the additional skills though for your crewmates seem to be random. Each crewmate can have up to 4 skills, and every crewmate, when you get them for the first time, have 2 skills, so you can train them with an additional 2. But if you upgrade their current skills, you can improve on those. And as with your weapons, you can upgrade your ship also to house up to 6 crew members, I believe, in total. Now, some of the crew members are weapon specialists, so they're best used to man your weapons on your ship in the bridge, and others are better suited for crafting, and others are better suited for research, depending on, which NPCs you get. So you'll basically be juggling all of these things in order to get the most efficient ship crew for your adventures. Each system contains a number of planets that you're going to explore, and each planet, depending on its size, will give you any number of encounters ranging from 2 to 5. There's weather on each system, because the weather has debuffs depending on what kind of weapons are being used. The encounters can be one of 2 things on these planets. Either it's going to be an event, which is a text-based thing. You'll read through it and then you're going to have to make a choice, and depending on what choice you've made, some will either give you resources or cash, others are going to unlock new crew members or key items, which, as far as I am in the game, I'm not exactly sure what they do. And of course, some of them will give you weapon parts, and if you're unlucky, bad things can happen as well, like your ship being damaged, or you will lose a variety of different resources. The developers had said that there are a large amount of these events in the game, and They do appear randomly, so you're always going to get them in a different order. Sometimes you'll get them again. I think I have seen duplicates of these things, but many of them have set outcomes. So once you've done an event and you know what choices give you what rewards, you will know for future playthroughs, so you can, I suppose, choose the right things that give you what you need. But the developers also said that some of these outcomes are random, so I don't know which of them are. The second type of encounter is combat, and this is where your choice of weapons and crew are going to come into play. The combat is turn-based, so you're going to get to choose what you're going to shoot. Each ship, including yours, will have up to 4 gun emplacements, a hull and a shield. The shields can be moved around depending on where you want, and so you'll basically choose where you want your shield to be. You'll select where your weapon targets are going to be. Once you've made all your choices, you'll fire your weapons and basically hope for the best, and then of course it's the enemy's turn to wreak havoc on your ship. When you start each combat though, you'll have a limited charge, so each weapon requires a certain amount of charge to fire, and on top of that your main character or your pilot also has special abilities that use charge, so you are going to have to decide whether to fire a weapon or whether to use an ability or whether to do both, and you're going to sort of have to juggle this charge. And as each turn plays out, your charge is going to increase, allowing you to do more and more. So of course when you start the game you can only fire 1 laser, but by turn 3 you can fire 2 lasers and use an ability, for example. You can of course upgrade your ship to both increase the maximum charge that your ship can have, as well as how much charge you start with. And obviously, for me at least, I thought this was relatively important, because being able to fire more of your weapons sooner gives you the upper hand in any combat situation. So each combat encounter kind of plays out the same way. You'll be taking out the enemy's weapons, then their shield, and then eventually their hull. Once the enemy's weapons are all destroyed, normally what they do is they offer you cash in order for you to let them go, but you can choose to destroy them. But then you've only got, I think it was 3 or 4 turns to do so before they leave, and if they do escape, you are going to lose out on even more resources. If you do manage to destroy them though, you'll get both cash, resources, and weapon components that allow you to craft new weapons. Once you've gone through all the encounters on the planet, you will go to the next planet, and eventually you're going to unlock the main objective in each of these systems, which will be followed by usually a boss battle. That's definitely going to put you to the test. The bosses have different methods and weapons depending on what they are, so you're going to have to work out what their patterns are and what kind of things they're doing, what you need to do first, and what needs to be a priority. And then once you've killed the boss, the portal opens up, allowing you to travel to a new system. And that's pretty much the loop of gameplay you're going to find in Holy Potatoes, We're in Space. I've spent just over 10 hours with the game so far, I suppose across about 3 playthroughs. I haven't finished the game yet, but I feel that I've played enough to give you guys my thoughts on the game. It's easy to pick up and relatively enjoyable. There were some sound issues with the sound and music and the volume being turned down. It still sounded significantly loud. This was an issue on a stream I did a few days ago. The camera, you'll notice in combat, switches between the 2 ships backwards and forwards. There is an option to disable it, but unfortunately disabling it didn't actually do anything, so I don't know if this is a bug with the review build I have. Hopefully when the game releases, that issue is going to have been sorted out. Now, the other thing I want to say is that the first time I reached the System 3, I was completely outgunned. In fact, I think that if you're in a system and your weapon level is 1 level lower than the system you're in, you're going to be in trouble. And this was my experience through 2 of my playthroughs. I quickly learned that you need to always have the highest level weapons available on your ship. So in my current playthrough, I have level 3 weapons in a level 3 system, and the shop in a level 3 system sells level 3 blueprints. So for example, if you're in a level 1 system, they'll sell level 1 blueprints. So the idea is to get the equivalent level of the system that you're in, if I'm making any sense. But even then, in my latest playthrough, I came across an enemy that I was able to destroy all of his weapons relatively easily, and then he proceeded to start ramming the crap out of my ship, which damages all of your guns and your hull as well. And so basically his ship became a 1500 hit point turret, and because of the damage that I was doing with my level 3 weapons, there was no way I was going to be able to destroy his ship, and I ended up having to retreat after losing one of my guns, since the other 2 would have been gone in the next round if he rammed me again. And unfortunately, as it stands, there was no way for me to really do more damage than I was actually doing. So in hindsight, I suppose perhaps I should have gone for his hull instead of the guns. It's a little bit of a tough situation. And the reason I say that is because there's a time limit. You have 22 souls, as I mentioned earlier, in order to go through each system, do everything you can before having to move to the next system before getting decimated by the fleet that's following you. So in my current game, I only have 15 souls left in the system before I need to move to an even harder system. And in that time, I'd need to finish the objective, which involved a boss battle. So it didn't leave me much time to train up crew members for a minor damage boost on my guns, or rely on the RNG crafting to get a better grade version of my level 3 weapons, which would eke out maybe a little bit more damage. And unfortunately, the hub only sells weapons of the planet's level, or of the system's level, so that's level 3, which I already had. And on top of that, traveling to the hub takes time as well. So as I said, it's a tough situation. If you die in the game, you can reload from the save game, but at the same time, is there really any point? Is that really going to play out any differently? All you can really expect is that you're going to get luckier, or that you find an easier encounter. The alternative, of course, is to restart the game and try from the beginning. It is a roguelite after all. Thankfully it doesn't have permadeath, but again, I don't know how much difference that's going to make. Each time you restart, of course, you're going to know what you did the previous time. You're going to have learned from your mistakes, and perhaps you'll be able to play a little bit more efficiently. You'll know what kind of approach you're going to need to take to the various enemies and what choices to pick in the various events that occur in the game. I do think, however, that some folks are going to find this frustrating, because restarting a game over and over is not always fun, and it's not always ideal. And also in my 10 hours, I would say that the combat in the game is not particularly varied or tactical at the point I am at. Of course, I haven't reached endgame. I don't know how much different the game's going to be then. But judging off what I've played so far, you know, the strategy has pretty much been to take out all the guns, then take out the shield, then take out the hull, and move on to the next encounter. Of course, you can move your shield around depending on where you think it's needed, or you can use one of your pilot's abilities. But, you know, perhaps I could be wrong. Perhaps the ship's hull should be a primary target for certain of the enemies. Perhaps that is what I did wrong in my last encounter. So, yeah, that is obviously something I'm going to have to try. Overall, I think that Holy Potatoes We're in Space is a decent little title, and I do look forward to getting a little bit further in the game, unless, of course, some ship rams me to death. Anyways, guys, that's been a look at Holy Potatoes We're in Space. If you guys enjoyed the videos, don't forget to like and subscribe, or if you didn't, you can dislike as well. Subscribing will allow you to get updates for all of my new video releases, and don't forget to share, because that helps out the channel a great deal. Otherwise, as usual, guys, if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the section below. Thanks for watching. I've been Sheldon. Until next time.